Okay, I'm back again to answer a question. So someone did leave a really good comment. They actually left several different questions. I'm going to hone in on only one of them right now. Thank you so much for that. For those that don't know, I am Minister Ashley. I'm a prophetess, a healer, a candle maker, an oracle deck creator, and as well an author. So thank you so much for tuning in. You can find the links listed down below for any of our products and services. Thank you. Okay, so getting into this, they brought up a really good point about, it was one of the divination videos like a couple months ago. So they were saying like, well, if magic and divination is okay, then what about when Apostle Paul casted out the spirit out of the girl? She was a slave girl and she was practicing divination to make money for her owners. Apostle Paul, he casted out the spirit. Number one, well, first of all, the girl was a slave. She wasn't there by her own free will. Not necessarily the spirit of divination that held her prisoner. It was people that was holding her prisoner, were forcing her to do something against her will. And it was because she had the gift of prophecy, really. Divination. It was just her modality. Number two, with the spirit of divination, which is a modern day interpretation, the original Greek actually says the spirit of Python. According to the Greek mythology, the god Apollo killed the massive snake Python. Pause here. The Greek god Apollo, the sun god, is synonymous with the creator god of the biblical text, specifically in the Old Testament, while the New Testament, Yahushua. And many of the scriptures support the idea of the Son of God, the Son of Man, Christ being the Son, with the New Testament connection being Christ. Following Apollo's victory, a temple dedicated to him was set up at the site in which Gaia's earlier sanctuary, and appropriated her oracle. Pythia, a goddess of the temple, who was said to have the spirit of God. Number three, the python, the snake, the serpent. Now, this is a prominent animal that is represented throughout the biblical text, from the Old Testament with Moses to the New Testament. Some people may equate the serpent or the snake being evil, but I really want to point out in the Old Testament with Moses and how he healed the people with the image of a golden or bronze serpent. And people may have a problem with the serpent, but like the connection between the spirit of the python, Apollo, as well as the serpent and Christ. All of those are symbols that can be used in both the negative and the positive. The sun can scorch things, but the sun also gives life. So the wrath of God, but also the gift of life from God. And that imagery in the Old Testament of the golden or bronze serpent on the cross, or on the staff, at that time it was just the staff, is the prelude to Christ being on the cross. And I say all of this because the spirit of the python, people may be spooked by that term, but all relates to one another. Number four, with the wording, it doesn't mean that it's a spirit, like it's something that has possessed her. It is something that is negative. It was just a spirit. And when they say spirits, the interchange in the Bible with spirit is also mindset, ability, a gift. Number five, someone can have a spiritual gift and still use that spiritual gift in a perverted way. This could have been the case here. Throughout the different interpretations of the biblical text, you can see that words are substituted. In this case, this is obvious. The words, the spirit of the python, has been replaced with the spirit of divination. Divination is a modality, is not a spirit. It's the way how you utilize your spiritual gifts. So even after this situation here, even after the person also asked about the day of Pentecost, no forms of divination was needed, but there's at least 100 forms of divination. And I will point out a couple of forms of divination in another video that have been used after the day of Pentecost. Number six. It's just illustrating the point of the reason why the people were so upset. It has nothing directly to do with any type of spirit. It's more so to do with what they were illustrating, because it leads into another point about how the persecution of Apostle Paul and the many other disciples, what they would go through. And that was a testament to who he was. Number 7, this scripture serves many purposes, one of them being that it confirms indeed who Apostle Paul says that he is. And it's a confirmation throughout the theme of the New Testament when she prophesies who he is and his position and his authority. Number 8, it highlights Apostle Paul's human nature, being frustrated, but even in his frustration, he's so powerful that he's able to remove a spirit, a mindset, an energy from someone. So one could even argue that his gifts were being misused by him casting out a spirit out of someone just out of his pure frustration and not under divine authority. Number 9. Besides the spirit of the python, there could have been other spirits, mindsets, energies inhabited her as well. So typically when there is a possession, which I think that most people would try to interpret this text as the young girl being possessed, that there's typically several other spirits that inhabit a person. So they may not be as prevalent, but typically that's the case. So if that is true, that the main spirit that was highlighted here is probably was the prominent spirit, just because that was what she was known for. She could have had the spirit of thievery. She could have had the spirit of prostitution. That is something that was very common. In conclusion, I think that traditional Christians would like to use this as a way of how to point out that divination is something that is evil and condemned and needs to be casted out. But it isn't a spirit, it's a modality to use alongside of someone's spiritual gifts. And because of the modern interpretation or translation of this text from Python to divination, that is one of the most powerful tools to disclaim the practice of divination. Just the same as in the Old Testament, prominently highlighted in the book of Leviticus, where there is a list of practices that thou shalt not do. However, I have went over this in other videos. Those were consecrated for the high priest, but as well, like you can see throughout every book of the Bible, people practicing divination and it being welcomed by God, Yahweh. It was more so a condemnation for the common person to practice magic, divination, as a means to control the population, but as well, if people have just exited, hence the name Exodus, out of bondage, they're not emotionally and psychologically ready to tap into those practices responsibly. Hence the reason why high priests and prophets were ordained for these different practices, because they consecrated themselves. They were willing to put in the spiritual work to be a vessel, and they were disciplined. Part of the word divination is divine. They had the divine authority because they made themselves ready. Just the same as today in this modern day of age, where magic and divination and all this stuff is open to the public, but not everyone can handle the responsibility to be a vessel of the divine, to utilize the tool, the modality of divination for a divine purpose and not for a self-seeking purpose. One of the common themes that you can see with the prophetesses and the prophets and the priests, etc., that they had a healthy relationship with the divine, with Yahweh, with God, with the supreme source. And they were an open, willing vessel to be used at the will of the divine. So although they were well taken care of, that they were willing to sacrifice and they were willing to be obedient. Contrasted to the flip side, where people would utilize these practices for selfish purposes, but not thinking of their fellow man, not thinking about the masses. So there's a balance, there's a responsibility that comes along with these practices. And with that, this is Minister Ashley, And I thank you guys so much for tuning in. Leave a comment down below, share if you care to do so, and I will catch you guys on another video. Peace.